In the coming days, we may unsanction the Iranian oil that's on the water. It's about 140 million barrels. So depending on how you count it, that's 10 days to 2 weeks of supply that the Iranians had been pushing out. That would have all gone to China. In essence, we will be using the Iranian barrels against the Iranians to keep the price down for the next 10 or 14 days as we continue this campaign. So we have lots of levers.
When it comes to Iran and the risk of Iran getting its hands on a nuclear capability or a ballistic missile capability, we have consistently said as NATO, collectively, that that cannot happen. So it is really crucial that that capability of the ballistic missiles, of the nuclear capability is severely degraded. I've been in contact with many allies. We all agree, of course, that Strait has to open up again. And what I know is that allies are working together, discussing how to do that. What is the best way to do it? They are working on that collectively to find a way forward.
Have you talked to Prime Minister Netanyahu about attacking the oil and gas fields?
Yeah, I did. I told him don't do that, and he won't do that. We didn't discuss. You know, we do. We're independent. We get along great. It's coordinated, but on occasion he'll do something, and if I don't like it, and so we're not doing that anymore.
That's Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent with this important development. The Trump White House may lift sanctions on Iranian oil stuck at sea. And then that was NATO Chief Mark Rutte on the news that NATO allies, the UK, France, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands and Japan now moving on a plan to secure the Strait of Hormuz and get oil shipments flowing. The UAE may join that effort. And then that was President Trump saying he told Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu to stop bombing Iran's major gas field. Joining us now, former counselor to President Trump and Fox News contributor, the one and only Kellyanne Conway. Kellyanne, it's always great to see you again. What's your reaction to what you just heard? Can the president and NATO keep oil prices low? The U.S. has been bombing Iran's missile batteries along the Strait of Hormuz with 5,000-pound bunker busters. What do you think?
Well, I like what Secretary Bessent made clear today, Liz, which is that we can both prosecute this war in Iran, make sure that they don't have that nuclear capability, decimate their Navy, and still keep oil and gas prices low here at home. How? He made very clear that he's doing strategic moves and temporary waivers, including perhaps unsanctioning Iran oil in tankers that are already out at sea, maybe Russian oil, allowing India to purchase some of that sanctioned Russian oil. You saw that Chris Wright, our energy secretary, successfully got, 32 or so other nations to join with us to release 400 million barrels. We can tap into the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, not for the reason, Elizabeth, that Joe Biden did in November 2021, which is to take from the SPR that Trump filled to the gills to lower gas prices, but to do it because we finally stopped Iran from not just being a major state sponsor of terror, but from manipulating the global oil supply chain for years. So I like Secretary Bessent saying, look, we can continue with our military prowess, but still not let the folks here at home suffer the cost of that. This will take time and patience, but I'm very confident in the competent strategies here as laid out.
Yeah, I mean, if you can remove Iran's terror threat and nuclear threat from the world, that's a big step toward peace for the world. Many have said that. What do you make of President Trump saying he may massively blow up Iran's major gas field, the South Pars gas field, if Iran again bombs Qatar's gas facilities? We got a dozen Arab nations now condemning Iran after Iran bombed oil and gas sites in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Kuwait. Israel did bomb Iran's South Pars gas field. The president said the U.S. did not know about that. What do you think?
Well, and the president made clear today in response to that reporter in his bilat with the Japanese PM that he didn't like that. He wishes Israel didn't do that. But he reserves the right to go further in this war by reminding Iran that their nuclear capability, those 50 and counting terror guys who are now gone, that we can go further by making sure that energy security is national security, not just to our nation, but beyond. And Liz, I think it should be lost on no one that we've got all these different levers that the Secretary of Treasury, Energy, the President himself, the Vice President today, American Petroleum's too. We've got lots of levers we can use. Look at the waiving of the Jones Act. Look at them. Look at what Chris Wright was telling this one energy company to do so that California would keep its supply humming. But, you know, everybody should know something that's fairly new, which is it's the Arab Gulf state nations that are coming and joining with us. It's not necessarily all the European nations. I'm really happy yet again NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte has come forward and reminded everybody that NATO as an organization, as a body, has said the same thing that our commander-in-chief has said, which is we cannot allow Iran to have nuclear capability. And so he wants NATO to make good on that promise. How would you do that? Well, answer the president's call to help in the Strait of Hormuz. Where are our allies? What is the purpose of NATO?
Now's the time to step up. Can you talk to the viewer?
Now's
I'm
the
sorry.
time.
I didn't mean to talk over you. But we've lived with this Iranian terror threat, this nuclear threat from Iran for 47, for years. They've been doing their terror regime for 47 years. Talk to the viewer about what it means to have a world without the terror threat of this Iranian theocratic dictatorship. What does it mean for world peace?
What it means for world peace, and remember, strength through peace, you've got to think about the strength part too. Sometimes to get that peace, you have to show the strength, and that's what the president has done here. An Iran that is not the #1 state sponsor of terror, that does not have nuclear capability to hurt its own people and us and freedom-loving people everywhere, means that we are safer here, and it means the war stays there and never comes here, and our boots never go on the ground there. It also means that they can no longer hold us hostage because of oil. Because we've decimated the Navy, we've destroyed their military capability, nuclear capability. And finally, if we got rid of the people who are raping women and throwing homosexuals off of bridges and killing their own people for protesting for peace and freedom, that's a bonus.
Yeah, that removes the jihadi threat. Kellyanne Conway, thank you so much. It's good to see you.